their disconnection when they came to see me, they're at 101 fever. I actually increased the fever to 104.
Yeah.
And then 2 sessions in a row, the fever broke. And then I feel really alone with everything.
Because I have no model
I'm the son of an alcoholic.
of successful relations and have him like close to me.
For letting me be here for you.
Did you get hurt, Teale? You come here to me.
From beginner's mind, it's fucking revolutionary.
Yeah.
This shit is like, what?
Yeah. By the way, did you see the podcast, the video of Teale and
Yeah, I loved it. That you and Teale did. It was really
Yeah.
good. It was really nice.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I don't know if people really get, and I hope it's okay for me to say it, that like organizing someone's experience like that, like, you know, that is like...
That's what changes everything.
It changes everything, right? For both people, right? Now,
Yeah.
happened to be I was doing the organizing and doing the receiving, but it's amazing.
Like people, I don't think anybody understands the level of mastery to do that, to like
Right.
organize what your own wife is saying.
Exactly. And then, of course, I'm hearing negative judgments about yourself, right? By the way, I thought that was a really good, true, and still obviously not that good, right? In our own ways, right? Because I thought what that episode was really good at showing there are these, or let's say not as normal, but definitely something that happens where someone struggles to share their reactive side, right? And this is a really important one, right? That we need all 4 doors of the advent calendar. Like you're vulnerable,
Right.
you're a reactive person, the other person is vulnerable, your partner, and they're a reactive person. And so most of the time, right, we think, okay, we have to help them see that when you're reactive, you're vulnerable. And what I thought was particularly a great example with Teale, actually a lot of the hard work was getting her to just be a reactive person.
Yeah, and to own this is the reactive stuff that I do.
This is reactive because it comes out because he feels ashamed of her reactivity. It's very hard to really understand what the cycle is. So I just think it's a really fascinating example of where...
And it's a blind spot. Yeah. That's the thing.
It's a blind
spot that we all have about our own reactivity.
Right.
Because as couples therapists, we might be motivated and we're so good at going to the vulnerability that's like, I think probably even more of a blind spot for us as couples therapists because we go right to the vulnerability. We forget to talk about the reactivity.
Well, the shame, and that's like the quote unquote blind spot is actually because she felt so ashamed of her reactivity. Right. Like she has a story. My reactivity is so bad.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of it. So then she has to stew in her reactivity, right? You know what I mean? Like, so I thought that was really great to give an example of that particular helping someone be reactive. And then of course, validating, well, of course you'd be reactive. Your person has gone away. Duh.
Yeah.
And so we could then not be so in the shame part.
Exactly. I thought that was really great. And I just also thought it was great that Teale has access to and is willing to be that vulnerable, because I think that also is a great model for people who are not able to do that, which is probably most people, to get to that level of what's really going on inside. Exactly.
No, look, I'm just, by the way, just to be clear, like every time I've said to Teale, like, do you want to do a video? She's like, okay. Like, are you okay with talking about our life? She's like, I'll do it. Right. She's just fearless, right? Which is great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Unlike me. Right. I'm a little scared person.
Yeah, but you do it anyway.
I do it anyway. Now I do. Took till my 50s, but I'm doing it. But look, we never did an introduction.
Oh, right. Are we recording?
We're recording.
Oh.
But by the way, that's really good what we just did, just to be clear, I'll just name it. What we just did is called Metaprocessing, and it's a really important part of the process. If ever you've had a transformational experience, right? Yeah. You had a present moment transformational experience.
Yeah.
And then when it's over, we look backwards at that transformational experience, and we talk about it in the past tense so that we integrate the learnings even more deeply.
Exactly. And I've been doing a lot of that with this couple I've been working with, where they were in that hopeless place. They were right on the edge of the cliff, looking over the edge of the cliff, 1 foot off the edge of the cliff, and going to each other, we're jumping, this is over. And with my help, we pulled them back off, and they got back to that place of connection. It was so beautiful, and it was so deep, and it made me so happy, and it was like so mushy and wonderful. And then we've spent the next 3 weeks since then, these last 3 weeks, talking about, hey, look at where we were and look at where you ended up, and how did we do that?
So
how did you do that? What's different now?
That's brilliant. I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And what did you do to get yourself away from that place and see each other differently? Because nothing actually in your situation changed. The only thing that changed is your perception about each other and yourselves.
Right. That's so great, right? And it takes a lot of courage as a therapist to hold someone in studying what happened before, because most people have this hunger. Okay, now let's solve the next thing, as opposed to, no, wait. Something really big just happened. Right. Let's really now study it and really integrate what happened. What was the experience that made a transformation? What's the different, like you said, perspective we both have? That's awesome. Well done. So nice.
Yeah, it was really good. And the other thing that's really cool about a moment like that is once people have come back from the edge of the cliff, and they're feeling safer with each other, it's an opportunity to go even deeper and study their vulnerability even deeper, because they're feeling safe, but they're still kind of raw from almost having ended their relationship. And so being able to really emphasize and reinforce, being able to see the little boy and the little girl inside, and the little boy and the little girl inside themselves.
I love it. Well, that couple is so lucky to have you.
And they're really awesome to work with too, because like you said, a lot of couples just want to go on to the next thing. And they've been really willing to be like, wow, we almost ended our marriage and we instead did this other thing. Whoa. Right. And really willing to look at it.
That's key. And it's a great segue into welcome to the Come Here to Me podcast. Today is Figs and Karen. Me, Figs, founder of Empathy, and Karen are amazing couples therapists and individual therapists that just like she's just sharing, doing incredible work, saving marriages and relationships. Yay. Well done. Anything you want to say just in the, now that we're doing an introduction in the middle?
I think it's cool that we just dived right in. We were just we got a lot to say today. We don't have time for introductions.
Well, it's so exciting, right? Meeting couples every week and all of these huge life moments that we get to share, right? It's incredible. And it's funny, I think you and I are we're kind of on a similar wavelength about what the work is bringing up. So today, what we just did for the first few minutes was what we call the Metaprocessing, the podcast episode that we released, where I help Teale, what we do an affect assembly, assembling her experience from her reactivity, negative judgment of me, to what her unmet love need, the vulnerable emotion, and the shame that she has, and then actually sharing that with me in an organized way that then helps me actually really understand where her reactivity came from, realize how much she loves me, and that we could feel even more connected than if the disconnection ever happened. And we've been soaring on that podcast. That episode makes us feel more in love and more a team, for the entire, I don't even know when we recorded that, 2 weeks, right?
That's so cool.
But yeah, amazing. So we've been meta-processing that, integrating it, remembering. And so today, what we want to talk about is what we refer to as impossible moments.
Yes.
In relationship. And that how all couples in an ideal world that you would come to accept and surrender to, impossible moments are an essential, unavoidable part of a loving relationship.
Yeah.
So maybe we should explain. What do you think, Karen? Should we just explain what an impossible moment is?
Yes, that's a great idea. And why don't you go ahead and talk about what an impossible moment is, and then I'll share what I've gotten from you about impossible moments, which has been significant.
Well, you go first. Go on.
Okay.
I talk too much.
I don't know. Start sharing about what I did. That's great.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're going to say something good about me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So early on in our supervision, you started to talk about impossible moments. And you like helped me reframe and understand that as something that's so valuable for couples, because as couples therapists, we sort of have this internal bias that we want to keep them away from things that are too painful or keep them away from thinking about the end of their relationship, but that there's actually tremendous value for a couple in kind of not only like putting their noses in it, but like forcing them to stay there. Like, no, let's really stay here in how impossible it is. You guys are so stuck. You see no way out. There is no move for you to do here that's going to get you back to a place of safety. You guys can't find your way forward. This is so painful for both of you. And keeping a couple in that place in a way that is really, you have to develop a level of comfort for that yourself as the therapist, because it is very uncomfortable, because they're like, well, why are we paying you if you're just telling us how stuck we are? Right. But there's so much value in that. And because of the learning I got from you on that, I became much more comfortable going to that impossible place with couples and keeping them in it much longer than I even felt comfortable, and definitely longer than they felt comfortable. And studying the impossible place, helping them look at what is coming up for you in this moment. What are you feeling inside? What are you feeling about your partner? And then really studying, like, what do we do from this place? Is there even a way that we could feel connected in how impossible this moment is for both of us, not just one of us?
Love it. No, it's so good. And obviously, nice. Thank you for the validation of me, but not obviously the most important thing, although it is for me personally, that someone said something nice about me, right? But
it is from you, though, seriously. Well, because I wouldn't have had the courage to do that, or maybe even understood the value of that if you did not teach me that early on. Well, so that was a really good learning.
Thank you, right? Thank you. But look, here's the thing, right? So it doesn't make sense, right? That's what I always say, the way to a better relationship is paradoxical, right? That couples almost always, if you're having a hard time in a relationship, it totally makes sense. It's absolutely rational, logical. Of course, what you're going to want to do is get out of suffering, right? You want to make the present moment better. But the path to making it better will actually involve going really deeply into the place that feels awful. Like wherever it is your relationship is struggling, that place where it feels awful is going to feel awful for both of you. And so in my not so humble opinion, right? Sorry. The difference between a really good couples therapist and a mediocre couples therapist is the therapist's willingness and ability to march you into the absolute impossibility where both of you are feeling unloved, feeling awful inside about yourself, about your partner, and it literally for both of you feels completely impossible. Like you said, I love the way you said, there is no move to take. But here's what the beauty, why that moment is so important, is we are now for reals in both of your deepest emotional bonding trauma. It is happening now, whether you're feeling abandoned or rejected, whether you're too much or not enough, right? It is happening now, and there's no way out.
Yes.
Right? So this is great. If we could transform this moment into connection, it is the deepest, most powerful healing you will ever experience.
Yes.
Now, by the way, this week, my first 2 sessions this week, I got to do this for reals where it was terrible. It was terrible. And I actually was thinking about both of the couples going like, oh my God, how are these couples going to keep coming to see me? All it seems to have happened, if I'm them, they're going to think Figs has made everything worse. And then I think of it as like a fever.
Yeah.
Their disconnection, when they came to see me, they're at 101 fever. I actually increased the fever to 104.
Yeah.
And then look, 2 sessions in a row, the fever broke. And these two people from impossible, and then I hold them on that impossible threshold, and then it breaks where one of them, like out of that tension, reaches, and the other person collapses in their finally able to feel their sadness, and they holding each other crying. Yes. And I spend the next 10 minutes, just don't do anything else right now, just to be with each other.
I have chills. It gives me chills.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, right? To be able to do, I say to be able to do that. I don't do anything other than bring them to that place. I bring them down into the underbelly of Mordor, right? I'm reading Lord of the Rings to my 8-year-old daughter. Some people are going to think I'm a terrible parent, right? But anyway, I'm going to take them to the place that is most terrifying, because that's where we can create the deepest magic.
Exactly. And they have to go to the terrifying. There's just no way to avoid it.
Yeah, well, listen, but when you say there's no way, unfortunately there is, because that's what most people are absolutely hell-bent on. I'm going to do everything I can not to feel abandoned. I'm going to do everything I can not to feel rejected. I will do everything for my too muchness not to be seen or seen by others, felt by myself. And I'll do everything for my not enoughness not to be felt by me or seen by someone else.
Right.
And so, look, I feel like I'm really sorry in some ways for my clients, right? That actually, listen, we're actually going to make you feel all of those things, but then actually love each other, because they are the parts in each other that needs the most love, are worthy of the most love, and they're actually the best parts of who you are.
Yeah.
And then so we can have them have that transformational experience. Now that couple can love those, they'll know who they really are for the rest of their lives, and they'll be able to love that part in themselves and in each other forevs.
But I love what you said, though, which is that they're going to do everything in their power to avoid it. And that's a really important point, because it's not like the expectation is that you're going to get into couples therapy and within the first session, you're going to be able to achieve that level of vulnerability.
No. Well, look, and this is why most people need a couples therapist. I don't know if there's another way. If there is another way, I'm all for it, right? I wish there was a pill, right? Then I wouldn't have to work so hard. But look, people at every crossroads, let's say there's 20 crossroads you have to get to before you could have this big transformational experience with each other. Let's say you have to go right at every crossroads to get to the big transformational experience. People left on their own, no offense, are going to go left every single time.
Right.
They're going to go the wrong direction every time, because right towards this, moving the right direction towards this transformational experience will always look that they're moving into more abandonment, more rejection, more pain. And so
more risk.
Going left always looks like it's a better option. And so that's why, you or me or like some other emotionally focused couples therapist that knows what they're doing, right? You need them on the journey, because they're going to meet you at that threshold and interrupt you just as you're heading off to the left.
Right.
Right. And say, hey, come here, come back over here. And then hold you at the threshold where you go, hey, listen, now there's no left or right. And just, no, don't give up yet. Don't go back. Right. And just hold you there and let the fever break, which, like you said, Karen, it's terrifying for the couple. And look, it's terrifying and is counterintuitive for 99.999% of therapists too.
Right. And, it makes sense. It makes sense that they want to make a left and go in the way that's always worked for them to avoid pain.
Yes, it totally makes sense.
Right. It's always worked. It's like what you're doing is adaptive. You're not making a mistake because it's always worked for you. It's just that now in this situation, if you really want to achieve more vulnerability and really be loved and seen for who you are inside, you have to take a risk and do it differently than you've done before.
Exactly. And there's good news. You don't have to do it alone. Right. In fact, like I said, I genuinely just don't know how people can do it alone.
Yeah.
So, but Okay, let's just give a real life example, right? There's enough explaining. Look, impossible moments, they're a part of your relationship we want you to come to accept and surrender to. And when you do, there's actually a deeper type of connection between both of you that is possible, and a deeper healing for both of you than you could ever achieve by being nice to each other, having date night, like all that other stuff, communicating perfectly, right? So impossible moments are actually a good thing for your relationship, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me give you a real life example of Teale and I. And in fact, I'll tell you the one that happened a few years ago, but it literally, and then I'll reference, it literally happened again this weekend, right? So it literally happened again this weekend. So 4 years ago, Teale and I are walking down Irving Street, where our offices are in San Francisco, right? And so we're walking down, and she has Kian, our now 5-year-old son, on her chest and a baby carrier. And I don't know what we're doing. We're running errands or whatever, right? And so there's a crack in the pavement, good old San Francisco. And Teale flies, she's got her like trendy San Francisco boots on, and she flies over the crack in the pavement, and she's going to fall on Kian, our son, like in the baby carrier. So she like twists her body at the last minute, and she manages not to land on Kian.
Good mama.
Good mama. So she's sitting on the ground, right? Kian, as you can imagine, is crying, right? It turned out there's something that, he's very good at letting us know when he's not happy, even 4 years later. So that was a harbinger of things to come. Well, anyway, so Kian's crying his eyes out, right? Just got a shock, really, right? And then Teale is sitting there with her ankle twisted. Right? And I'm like now trying to get down and see, is Kian okay and is Teale okay? So let's say you're looking at that from the outside. Yeah, like mom falls, baby gets a fright, dad is actually just trying to show up and be helpful, right? Nothing else going on. But that's not actually the full picture of what's going on. Underneath, in the emotional bonding, attachment realm, when Teale fell and twisted her ankle, and when I saw her fall and twist her ankle, in the emotional realm, something kicked in instantly for both of us. Don't even worry about trying to work out who friggin' got triggered first. It doesn't matter. If I could say both of these statements at the same time, I would. It's just not humanly possible. Teale, I'll start with Teale, but both the same level. Teale instantly ended up emotional bonding wise feeling, is anyone going to show up for me? And who is that anyone? One person in particular. Does Figs care when I'm hurt?
Right.
Is my primary person going to be there for me when I need them?
Yes.
And she looks out on the world, and because she's got past trauma, past experience that looks like no one's there, she looks at me and she's like, is he coming? And of course, but she has the expectation of past experiences, no one's coming.
Right.
Same again, who cares which happened first? I look at Teale fall, and of course I want to be there for her practically, but emotional bonding wise, I see her fall and I say, oh, fuck. I am now facing a test of enoughness. I'm now threatened emotionally because I now have an opportunity to fail to be good enough. Right. And so I'm terrified. Right. You were going to say something, Karen?
Just right. Because I think that when you're in Teale's role as the pursuer and you're tracking for, are you going to show up for me? It's really hard to realize that the withdrawer, the other person, is automatically really, really afraid that they're going to let their partner down and they're going to fail them.
Right. And so this is this instant feedback loop. Instant. Like nobody has said anything. Like Teale is scared I'm not there and I'm scared that I'm a disappointment. She sees now the fear in my eyes and she's like, oh my God, he's not going to show up. Right. And then I see instantly the disappointment. Oh, my God, you couldn't even care for me when I fall on the ground. And so we're both in this deep emotional terror. And guess what? it's fucking impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
There's no amount now of me showing up that doesn't make me look like I'm just scared of Teale when she's lying on the ground. And there's nothing she can do that can actually tell me, given where she's at emotionally, Figs, you're not a disappointment. It's okay. Right? There's no move we can make.
Yeah.
And so we get up, we walk the rest of the way home. Teale is heartbroken. I'm fucking alone in the world. I can't even fall over, and my partner will be there without like being all, hello, are you okay down there? And I'm heartbroken because there's no way that here I am like, what the fuck? I did the best I could, and now I'm a disappointment.
Right.
But later that night, when we're like come together, this is the story we tell. This is the story. Hey, when you fell over, I touched a place that there was no way I would ever be good enough. And I got stuck. I felt powerless. I got frozen. And I see how the way I looked at you in that frozen place left you feeling alone. And she reaches out and she takes my hand, like accepting and validating. It makes sense you felt that way. And she's able to go, look, I felt really alone. I felt like I was that little girl again, waiting to be picked up from school and no one was coming. And so like when you look scared and I see that I did look at you like I was disappointed in you. And then, again, more technical terms, right? We hug the shit now out of the little boy that was never going to be good enough a few hours earlier on the side of the road, and the little girl that was no one was coming. We give them that love now that we couldn't give each other then when we both got scared.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way you described that. And I just have to say that most couples would not have the skill to do what you described without that missing step of getting into a cycle or a conflict, what we call a cycle, a conflict right in that moment.
Oh, but we did. Sorry. I mightn't have. I'm glad you came back to that. We did get in the cycle. Listen, I think in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? You're going to be disappointed in me. Like, this is, I did something. This is me. And she's looking at me going, what like kind of a husband do I have?
Right.
Now, we might have been socially aware enough not to shout those words at each other on the side of the street opposite our couples counseling office, right? You know, so we're like, okay, let's not get this on video, right? For people to put on social media. Oh, but we were pissed at each other, right? Yeah, you're right. Let's be clear. The hours before we have that conversation in the kitchen, we're both hurting and we're both seeing the other person as the withholder of flavors of love. And we're cycling.
Right. Because in that moment, when she first gets that sense that you might not be there for her, she's going to be critical. How could you not show up for me in this moment? Exactly. Because she's so afraid that you're not showing up. It turns into criticism. How could you not show up for me? I'm so disappointed in you. And as soon as you pick up on that, you're going to either get defensive, like, I can't believe you're blaming me for this, or you're going to just withdraw and shut down. And then she's going to even more, where did you go? Now you're totally gone.
You're right. So, and this is the thing, you don't have to say those words explicitly.
Yeah.
When she's feeling abandoned and alone and it's scary, she ends up looking critical, even if she never says a critical word. Exactly. And when I'm scared, I'm not going to be enough. I look, if I'm not actively being defensive or actively collapsing, shutting down, dissociating, if I don't look like I am, I bloody am. I was defensive and I was, okay, let me see how I can look like I'm trying, but I have exited the build. I'm going to go off to my little, even not consciously, I'm off to my little cave, like in Fight Club with the little penguin, right? Remember? Anyway, but I've disappeared. Sorry. Obscure movie reference, right? I've gone off to my serenity now, like little.
And she can feel that immediately.
And she can feel it, right? So yeah, we're both not crazy. Like, this is the thing, most people, she could say, look, I didn't even criticize you. And I could say, what? I wasn't even defensive. I was trying. Now, listen, don't gaslight each other. Yeah, you felt abandoned and you look critical, and I felt like I was failing and I was being defensive and dissociating. Like we're both right that we were both reacting, but it was actually coming from a place where we're both hurting. And in that moment, when all four of those things are happening, it's completely impossible.
It's impossible.
But here's the good news. It hurts so much for both of us. It was so heartbreaking for both of us that's what made it possible later that night to tell this entire story where it makes sense we both got hurt, and it makes sense we were both reactive, and it makes sense being on the receiving end of both of our reactions. It was devastating and heartbreaking. And that drops it, goes from 104 fever back to, 98.6, right? And we could actually love and care for poor little not enough Figs and poor little alone Teale.
Right. But you can only do that if you have the understanding of what is really going on under your partner's reactivity and your own reactivity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's and that's the work. Like I was saying, again, if there was a way to do it without a therapist at these crossroads,
right?
So obviously we're able to do it for ourselves. And by the way, just because I referenced this, it literally happened this weekend where we're leaving the beach, and Teale hit her head off the top of the minivan, and I'm standing there fucking frozen. Like I got scared. Like, oh Jesus, she needs care. And she looked back. God, why are you standing there? Why aren't you helping? Why aren't you comforting me? So then I come over and she's like, rub my neck. Like my neck is hurt. And I'm like, like a scared person rubbing her neck. And so I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not going to be enough. And she's like, I can't believe you. But again, we know, right? This is like, she got triggered deeply in her aloneness. No one's coming when I'm hurt. I was back in my not enoughness. And so I'm now not able to show up for fear it's going to get worse, which of course does make it worse. And of course, her looking like she's disappointed does make it harder for her to get the love that she needs. But later that night, again, in the kitchen, new kitchens, right? Hawaiian kitchen, we're able to have this exact same conversation and love the parts in each other that got hurt then that we couldn't be there for them, like actually do it now.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful. And I just want to say to anybody who's watching this, who doesn't know how to do that yet, because maybe you haven't been through couples counseling, that when you are in an impossible moment, even if you can't identify what the vulnerable feeling is that you're having inside that's leading to your reactive behavior, where maybe you're being critical, or maybe you're blaming your partner, or maybe you're shutting down and withdrawing, or being defensive, or trying to placate your partner. When you're doing these things, or your partner is doing these things and these behaviors that seem so obnoxious and just seem to make things worse, to really understand that there is always a vulnerable emotion underneath, and they are always actually trying to get back into connection with you, even when it seems like that's impossible. That can't possibly be the case because their behavior is so obnoxious. They can't possibly be trying to get back into connection with me, but they always are, just like you always are. You're tracking to stay connected. You don't want to be disconnected. And when you have an impossible moment, even if you can't do what Figs and Teale can do, because they are these like awesome couples therapists who understand this so well, you can at least know that something deep and vulnerable is getting triggered for us.
Yeah. But I love that, Karen, and thank you for bringing it back, right? It's really good. Everybody's always doing their best, even though you can't see they're hurting. I guarantee you they're hurting if we actually studied it. It's really good to have that assumption. And then let's test the assumption, right? But the other thing I don't know if that's really, really important. Did you notice what I just told you? Like Figs and Teale, couples therapists, trainer of therapists, we are having these disconnections. We are getting scared that the other person isn't there, and we're having reactivity. The work starts once we're in an impossible moment and we find our way back through having a transformational experience of being there for each other now the way we couldn't be there earlier, getting back to connection again.
Yeah.
So we always, what makes us good, let's say, as a couple, is we can go from bad back to good. It's not that we're solidly in good.
Right. There's this illusion that if we get good enough at this, or some people who might have enough skill are never going to get into a cycle or a conflict, or if we go through couples therapy, we're never going to get disconnected again. No, that is an illusion. That's impossible. It's never
exactly. Or if I had a different partner, if only I had a different partner, if only this partner got knocked on the head and they became a different person, like emotionally, right? Like then we wouldn't get in a cycle, right? If I took this communication course, then I wouldn't get in a cycle. No, if you love each other, you're going to scare the living daylights out of each other and you're going to get in cycles, and that's where the work begins.
Exactly.
Even for bloody, all we do is couples therapy, couples.
Totally.
Like
and
Teale
I use you and Teale as an example when I talk to couples that I'm working with, like, hey, listen, not getting into cycles isn't even something that's on offer. It's not on the table. Like we're not offering that to you.
Exactly. It's not the promise. What's the promise if you started couples counseling with someone that knows what they're doing? Like the promise is that you will have a method to get out of disconnection again and again, no matter what the topic is, for the rest of your life. And you'll end up feeling even closer and loving each other more forever.
Exactly. Forever. Back to forever.
Forever. Sounds so cool. Anything else?
I mean, I think maybe just to say that an impossible moment does not mean that your relationship is impossible. And it doesn't mean that your relationship is hopeless. It's just a moment where you have an opportunity to actually get connected in a place where it seems like connection is impossible, which sounds like it's a paradox, but it's true.
No, exactly. Yeah, it is. It's paradoxical. If you can do the work to make that impossible moment like into a connection opportunity,
yes,
you'll connect more deeper than you ever imagined was possible.
Yeah.
So, but very good. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Missed talking to you last week, so I'm glad we got to do this today.
Yay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening, watching, and we'll be back with another Come Here to Me episode. And I know I have to be in the hot spot with Teale assembling my, emotions and reactivity. So,
let's see if you can be as brave as Teale.
Exactly. Yeah, the pressure's on.
She put the gauntlet down.
Very brave. All right. Right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.